So good evening. This is Mike Camilleri, the chair of the Cromwell Board of Education, calling to order our first Zoom meeting of the Cromwell Board of Ed at 7:02. Rather than do the full roll call, I'll highlight who is here and who's not. So from the Board of Ed, again, myself, Mike Camilleri, Lori Cantwell, John Flanders, Lena Kelleher, Jen Lamberson, Jeff Matrullo, Dipti Post, and Catherine Russ. Absent Lindsay Murley. From the administration, all of our administrators are present except for Karen and Sue, I believe. And we have our student representatives, Hunter and Clara, also with us. Just to check in, do we have any members of the town council joining us tonight? Okay, any members of the Board of Finance joining us?
Yes, good evening. This is John Ireland.
Hello, John. Welcome.
Thank you. Mike, it's Enzo. I missed that. I'm on the call.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it. Okay. So first, I'd ask everyone's patience as we go through this process. We are doing our best to figure it out, and special thanks to Tommy and the crew for putting this together. We're obviously all learning this firsthand, so hopefully it'll be successful. If anyone has any problems or concerns during this meeting that they want to draw to my attention, you can feel free to text me, and I'll share with you my phone number right now for anyone who needs that is 860-803-5562. Again, 860-803-5562. Okay. So we've done the roll call. We'll now ask for a motion to approve the agenda. So is there a board member, and I should say, Mr. Flanders, thank you for that motion. Is there a second?
Second. Jeff
We have a second from Mr. Matrullo. Any comments or questions on the agenda from the board members? Hearing none, please let me know if you object to the agenda. We'll not do that way because it'll be too confusing. Anyone object from the board to the agenda? Okay, the agenda is approved unanimously. Now, members of the public, as you know, as we included in the agenda, there is no opportunity for public comment during this meeting. I will share that we received, Enza, do you happen to know how many letters we received?
Not exactly, but approximately 40, probably in the 40 range.
Okay, so we received 40 pieces of correspondence. They will all be attached to the minutes, so everyone will get a chance to review them. I will tell you the majority of them echoed the same theme, which was around the budget discussion for tonight. We had a few focused on other things, including April vacation and protection of senior activities to the extent possible, but the vast majority were for the budget request, and I think all of them, unless I'm mistaken, all of them were in support of that. And the majority of those, as you'll see in the letters, were from our dedicated and members of our faculty and staff for the Cromwell schools. But you will see those, but again, all of those, there was no one supporting any cuts to the previous opposed budget from those letters that were received. So we'll share that. We do have a couple of other correspondence on the budget for way of context and additional background on the discussion from Mayor Faenza and Chairman Neto from the Board of Finance, and we'll share those during the budget portion of this discussion. So for any of the members of the public, if you do have comments, again, we can't accept them during this meeting, but as noted in the agenda, please feel free to send any correspondence to Lisa Hicks, or as always, contact me, again, Mike Camilleri, at that point. Okay, so Dr. Macri for the superintendent's updates.
Good evening, everyone. I would
Macri,
like, can you hear me?
Yeah, but if I could. So I noticed we're now at 78.
Yes.
So what I am going to suggest, just in case we get to the 100, is that we go out of order on the agenda and have your updates at the end, because we can always do your updates in writing if needed. So I'd rather do the action items that require us to have a meeting while we know we can still have the meeting. You okay with that?
Absolutely fine with it.
Okay. So we're going to just turn to action items 5A through D. Is there a motion to approve the minutes and motions from March 10th?
Yes.
First, motion made by John, a second from,
Second.
that was
Second.
Catherine.
Yep.
Any comments or questions from board members? Oh, I'm sorry. So I think you all saw what we're actually approving is minutes that were not circulated with the agenda, but had one update. Lori Cantwell correctly pointed out that we had inadvertently missed a comment. Lori had commented during the meeting about the impact of distance learning on students and families with students with on IEPs, and asked what that would look like. So that comment has been added to the agenda. So that's what we're approving. We have that motion from John and Catherine. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none from the board, any objection to passing that motion from board members? Hearing none, motion approved unanimously. Is there a motion to approve the executive session minutes and motions from March 10th?
Motion.
Motion made by Catherine. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
I think that first second I heard was from Jen. Any comments or questions on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. I screwed up my own little process. Any objection? Hearing no objection, those minutes are approved. We're going to move past the April vacation question because I think that will be an easier one than we probably think, but let's go to the budget discussion. So by way of quick background on the budget discussion, you know, as I think everyone knows, you know, we are facing extraordinary times with COVID-19. Every one of us and everyone we know is facing some sort of challenges, big and small, and we're trying to find out the best way to work through those. So I did think it's important to take a moment on behalf of the board to thank all of our teachers, staff, administrators, every staff member, our CAF workers who are serving food, and everybody else who has played a role in keeping things going. We really appreciate it. Second, a quick thank you to all of our families. We know this is an incredibly challenging time, and we appreciate your patience, we appreciate your dedication, and we appreciate the challenges you are facing in trying to balance all of the things you need to support your families, your children, your work, and your own sanity. And third, certainly thanks to the broader community for the continued support in all of these efforts as we move forward. So I'll briefly note from a note we had from Mr. Netto that I think was all the board members have seen, and again, it will be included with the correspondence. But Mr. Netto basically discourages against the Board of Finance using the savings fund. And I'd ask if you're not talking, if you wouldn't going on mute so we don't have background noise. But basically recommends not tapping the fund balance based on discussions with Marianne Sylvester for any budget increases that are proposed, and that the rating agencies certainly have some challenges with doing so from the perspective of for operating expenses. Enzo, Mayor Fiennes, I know you're on. I'm happy to summarize your letter or to hear a few words from you before we begin our discussion on the budget, your choice.
I'll defer to you, Mike. You can read the letter. Thanks.
Okay. So we did receive a letter from Mayor Fiennes, certainly wishing all of us well. We are, as a town, facing unprecedented times, and I'll not read every word, so I'll paraphrase some things here, but staying within the meaning. Life has changed for us all, myself included. On a more personal note, I can tell you firsthand, not only as mayor, but as a small business owner, that the economic impacts of this COVID impact are pretty significant. He also talks about the Human Services Department and how they've been a saving grace for so many families in town. People who have never had to use the service before are now expressing need, which is straining the department, and businesses are no different. He comments that it'll be very challenging for some to reopen their doors, and notes that as a business owner himself, his heart is heavy and he's had to lay off the majority of his own staff at his company. And many are filled with fear, anxiety, and sadness. In his note, he notes that he feels it's imperative to keep the budget as stable as possible without an increase in taxes that will burden our residents and businesses directly. As we continue on in these uncharted waters, any significant increase is the absolute last thing our residents and business owners need. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Stay safe and be well, Mayor Enzo. So again, Mayor Fanza and Chairman Neto's letters will be included in their entirety in the package. So that really kind of just highlights why we are here today. After discussions with the Mayor and Chairman Neto, they asked us to relook at our proposed budget increase in that context, and to see if we would be willing to propose something that is a little lower given these extraordinarily challenging times. I think all of us, myself certainly included, and I know Enzo and Julius as well, are very strong supporters of education and appreciate the importance of these positions and the budget we've proposed. I don't think anyone thinks we're proposing a crazy budget, but instead one that meets the needs of our community. But the fact is our community needs are dramatically different than they were even a month ago, so they've asked us to revisit it. For clarification to everyone, a couple of points that I'll make. One is the reference D in your Board of Ed packages, which includes some proposed reductions to get us down to 3.51 from the 6.14 we had previously approved. I just want to be very clear. This is, I asked Enza, I said, listen, I think potentially based on everything I'm hearing, we should get, if we want to avoid raising taxes, and that's a preliminary question, that would then get us to we originally thought 3.51, it's probably closer to 3.75. So I asked her to put together a list of what would those possible reductions look like if we've decided as a board we wanted to get down to that number. And so that's what that list is. These are not Enza's recommendations for cuts she thinks are helpful or that she would frankly even support, but with the request I made of her to show us what would likely be the list of items to get us to there if we decided that's where we wanted to go. That's the list that she has proposed. I will note that in the vast majority of the correspondence we received, particularly from our faculty and staff, the focus was most of the focus was on the social workers, and I think social studies teachers not far behind from my read of those letters about really re-emphasizing the importance. And I think it's important for everyone to appreciate that, you know, the board did pass this budget, and we thought these were very important, and we were very supportive of it, but things have changed dramatically over the past month, so thought it was very important for us to revisit this. In the new process of the budget under Governor Lamont's, one of his executive orders, the town, and Mayor Franza, correct me if I misstate any of this, the town council will be, is empowered to basically give a directive to the Board of Finance on the budget process, and the likely anticipated plan, given the COVID-19 situation, would be that the Board of Finance would, at the end of this process, be the decision-making authority on voting up or down the budget, which differs from most years where the Board of Finance would basically decide the numbers that would go to the townspeople for a vote. But that will be changing for this year. Mayor Franz, anything you want to correct me on that or clarify?
No, Mr. Chairman, you hit spot on. I will at our council meeting next Wednesday authorize a resolution by the town council to direct the Board of Finance to adopt the budget prior to May 5th. In hopes that we can at least let the public know that we've got a budget in place, and hopefully it will be with a 0 mill rate increase. That is obviously the goal, and that will happen next week. So you are spot on. There will not be a referendum or any town meetings to correlate with the budget. But the Board of Finance will host public hearings as they normally do this week. Via Zoom, that'll also be available to the public, and they will be able to call in. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, and for those who aren't familiar with the timeline and the process, tomorrow night is the Board of Finance first hearing, at which meeting they will hear from both the Board of Ed and from the town side of government with their budget proposals. So whatever we decide tonight, whether that was what Enza will be presenting to them again via Zoom tomorrow. And information on how to join is on the town's website if you have not already received that. And then next week, including on April 6th for the Board of Ed, the Board of Finance will have additional hearings and workshops and deliberations on the budget. Now, unlike the town side, on the town side, they can cut specific line items and the like. On the Board of Ed side, they cannot cut specific items. All they can do is cut our bottom line. So, for example, if we were, and I'm not suggesting anything, just giving this as a hypothetical, if we were to say we're still going with the 6.14, the Board of Finance couldn't say you need to take out 4 social workers and 2 social studies, but they could say we're cutting you to 3%. You guys have to figure out how you're going to handle the budget within those parameters. And then obviously we'd be faced with tough decisions about what we would need to do. So just so everyone understands the process. So board members, before we start discussion deliberations, does anyone have any questions or any points of clarification on the kind of setup and foundation here? And then after we go through that, then I can open the floor to the board for debate and discussions. So any questions?
Mike, could we define what we mean by reduced benefits for staff?
Yes, and we will define that, John. I'll have Enza touch on that in a second. So thank you. I'll flag that. Any other questions? Any other question? And to be clear, I think that is just there are 3 positions that are current positions: the 1 world language, the 1 existing teacher, and the 1 teacher through attrition. I think it's their benefits that if we were not to have those positions, their benefits would also be reduced. Enza, am I correct on that quick answer?
No, so the original 7 position benefits, see where it says reduced benefits staff, 7 positions, those would be the 4 social workers, the 2 social studies, and then the world language. And then we went into deeper cuts where you'll notice that I would,
capstone position.
yeah, the capstone position, right. Then we'd have to, the existing teacher and 1 teacher through attrition, and then the capstone position are the extra 3.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on the process before we get into the debate on the actual budget request? Okay. So why don't we, and again, this is just for board members, but obviously our administration can also answer questions as needed. So any board member would like to start either with question, comments, perspective?
I would like to start.
Okay, if you could just, and
Jen Lamberton.
Yep,
Yes.
thank you.
So removing the 1 existing teacher and the 1 teacher through attrition, are there thoughts to who that would be, what schools that would affect, what departments?
And so I'll turn that to Enza. I just asked that we be very sensitive about actually referring to names of folks or similar information, just to respect privacy and of our employees. But Dr. Macri, with that caveat, if you can answer that or have one of your team members address that. Sure.
At this point, Jen, I have some ideas, initial ideas, but because we're so it's just so early to make a determination on where we would cut as far as class size. I think we would keep our eye on that very carefully, and I have all of the enrollment in front of me like I do every day, and I'm always looking. However, at this point, I do not want to disclose my thoughts because it could change, and I don't want any staff members getting worried about potentially losing a job before we have that final discussion, and it's time to I would like to let them know first before we talk about anyone individually.
Okay.
Thank you, Jen. Any other questions or comments, Jen, at the moment? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, but if other people have questions, I don't want to steal all the
questions. No, please go ahead.
Okay. So if we were to cut that world language position, I think we've talked about this in the past, but what would the class sizes look like?
So right now, I'm going to pass it over to Frandy Fiore, but if we, right now, we are with this teacher very high in numbers. Fran's been working on the schedule, so I'm going to pass it over to Fran so that she can respond. Fran, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yep,
Yes.
we got you, Fran.
So I have done a preliminary schedule for next year. I've been running the master schedule with Mr. Norrie, and we assumed that since it passed in the budget, we were assuming that we were going to put that teacher in. So I have done a run with that teacher, a new teacher included, and class sizes they're still a little large. I mean, they're in the low 20s, some high 20s, but we can balance those out once we get the actual schedule together. But we are now, with that new teacher, we were able to offer the new course, which we have to now offer for our high school graduation requirement. That every student in the building, every student has to take a world language and receive a world language credit. So he had developed a new course. We were unable to have it run this particular year because we just didn't have the staff. As of right now, I have 3 of the teachers teaching 6 classes already. So the world language department is overextended. They have 27 in the class in some of the classes, and they also are presently teaching 6. So I don't think I can mathematically do it. So we might have to just eliminate some of the classes.
I just wanted to add to Fran. Fran did mention.
If I
Yes.
could, just for all of our speakers, just because it's, even though I may recognize the voices, not everyone in the public will. So the first time anyone's talking from the board or from, I'll introduce the board members, but for any administrators who are speaking, first time you're speaking, if you could identify both your name and your role, and then subsequent times for everybody, please just announce who's speaking, just to make it easy for everyone listening to know, to not have to guess on the voices. So this was Mike Camilleri, who didn't follow his own rules.
It's all right. It comes up at the top. See it, Mike? It might not on your computer. It probably just does on mine.
Oh, it does not.
Enza Macri. Enza, I just want to make sure that everyone understands also, Fran mentioned something very important. That new course is one of the things that I'm worried and concerned about, that I talked to the board about previously, about the new graduation requirements for the freshmen, needing 25 credits to graduate, and every single student has to take a language where it used to be an elective. So that is a concern, because if we were to remove this position now, not only would it take away the opportunities for our students, but what concerns me even more so is the following year, we have to remember, we have to include those other positions that we had to take away from this year's, next year's proposed budget in order for us to be in compliance with accreditation. And that is one of my main concerns, is that we will not, we won't be accredited, which means we won't be able to give out diplomas. And that, I'm trying to phase it in slowly. I just got here, as everyone knows. However, I'm not blaming any of you for not doing it, but many districts have been phasing this in over the last 3 to 4 years, and we have not been. So it's going to be a big chunk all at the same time, and then it also will be difficult for all of our students to access these classes, because we may not have, their schedules may not allow it. So this can cause a potential problem in the future. I just want you to know that.
So thank you, Enza. So I will note we are now at 91. If we get much higher, I may ask some of our administrators to drop off the call if we do reach that issue, but I'll keep you posted. You can obviously see yourself too, but you don't have to do that yet. Thank you. Jen, back to you.
Okay, so just one more question. With the capstone project, I'm assuming if we were to cut that position, that would fall on the school counselors to manage that. So I just want to clarify if that is the case, which is concerning. And then I'm just wondering, who's managing it now? I'm assuming the school counselors, but who is managing it now? And is there a way to maybe, I don't know, to simplify it or make it part of a class or something so that it doesn't fall on the school counselors? I guess I have just questions about that.
Hi, Jen. Enza speaking again, and I will invite in a minute for Fran and Carrie to join, but we had these preliminary discussions way before we even tried to put in a position. We talked about what this position would look like. In some districts, it's another teacher. We started off with another teacher, and then we made it a para position so that we can have a savings of about $30,000. Yes, to answer your question, it would definitely, a big part of it would most likely fall on the guidance school counselors' shoulders. However, there is not one extra person at Cromwell High School that can possibly take this on. We would have to figure out a shared responsibility, but it definitely, I can't sit here and tell you that it won't fall a lot on the school counselors, because I wouldn't be honest, just because of the nature of it. But we would have other people who would be obviously supporting it as well. But it's a huge undertaking, and we don't want our students to just do the project because they need it to graduate. We actually want them to live out the experience of what is expected of them, like a true capstone project would do. We don't want to just check a box. We want our kids to actually be able to develop their project and then actually do it, which is expected. And that's all I have to say. I don't know if Fran or Carrie want to put anything in about that position. Carrie or Fran?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh,
This is Fran, you're a high school principal. So right now we were piloting it as just one course where kids could take it as an elective, because it's not mandated until, we did that last year and the year before. And now we're doing it this year. And we realized that the students who are freshmen absolutely have to have this experience in order to graduate. But we, like Enza had said, it would have to be spread out. I don't have the staff. Just to give you one quick figure, as I've been creating the master schedule, next year, my enrollment will be the highest it's been probably in 10 years. So we are graduating the smallest class. And if you look at certified staff, and if you look at classroom teachers, I have 4 less classroom teachers than I did 10 years ago when I had this number of enrollment. So it's been very difficult to figure out what we're actually going to do with the amount of students. I mean, it's a great problem to have. Cromwell is growing, and we're seeing that in the high school. We're right back up to where we were 10 years ago, whereas my colleagues that I talk to are losing students. One school that just said they lost over 100 people in the last 3 years. So we're fortunate that we have the enrollment, but we have to make sure we can maintain the staff.
Excellent, thank you. Jen, any follow-up questions on that? Otherwise, we'll come back to you with additional questions, but any follow-up questions on that one?
I'm good for now, thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Selena, I see you have a question if I'm reading my app right. So Selena.
Thank you. Yes, I officially raised my hand on the app.
And I see John Flanders next. So Selena, then John.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to comment that I feel like we've gone through every item on this, and we were given so much support. We had so many questions for Enza and the team. We've been through this, and I just feel like nothing's really changed. Obviously, the economics may change, the environment has changed. We're all very uncertain and worried right now. We don't know what the future will bring. But I just don't think that making decisions based on some unknowns is what I'm comfortable doing right now. I'm more comfortable basing it on the current needs, which have not changed at all. And if anything, I believe they're just going to increase when students return to school. I mean, this distance learning has been challenging at best. The teachers are doing an amazing job, but it's really hard at home for parents, and I don't know how much learning will be taking place. And so to come back in the fall, and sorry to go on, but I've been thinking about this all weekend, and
Please.
it's really been eating away at me, because I think we're going to be in a bad situation, not only with, helping students that maybe fall behind, but social, emotional, challenges they might have when they return. We're going to need all the help we can get. So that's where I'm at right now. I don't see anything on here that we haven't talked about. And now we hear Fran saying that enrollment is increasing, not decreasing. So that's concerning too. I'd hate to see class size increase. So those are just some thoughts I've had.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Lena. And please don't apologize. That's exactly what we want our board members to do, to share their perspectives and opinions and ask the questions so we can determine what what we'd like to propose to the Board of Finance. Okay. So I see John and then Lori. So John, you're up next. John Flanders.
Hi, this is John Flanders. Am I on?
You are, sir.
Okay. Before I get into the discussion of this, I had some questions from some of the correspondence that we got. In Mr. Neto's letter, there was a reference to our current fund balance being about 19% of budget, and that the current proposed capital projects would reduce that by a little more than 2.5%. Do we know what those capital projects are?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, John. So, John, this is Mike Camilleri. So I think I heard we have one member of the Board of Finance and Mayor. So we'll start with Enzo. Enzo, are you able or do you want to address that? And then we can also hear from John from the Board of Finance if helpful.
Sure, Mike. So we have obviously our current infrastructure projects, which are road projects. We have the atrium at Town Hall that needs to be replaced. There's a good portion of the roof over parts of Town Hall that need to be replaced. They're very old. I mean, most of the capital projects are related to infrastructure. There are obviously, we try to upgrade vehicles that are old. So there is 2 police vehicles, I believe, that are going to be moved out of rotation. But, a good portion of all the projects are infrastructure projects. Now, I know that we will be making a recommendation to the Board of Finance because the new capital fund was created. That was to move the excess money so that we stay within that threshold that the council created. That is all going to be put on hold. All that excess money is going to be left in fund balance to be able to weather this storm. We are very concerned when taxes are due. There's going to be many individuals who will not be able to pay property taxes, and a ton of businesses that will not be able to pay property taxes. We want to keep the fund balance healthy. So all those funds that we're going to be earmarked for those future projects, capital projects, are going to all be put on hold. So whatever we're going to present to the Board of Finance is strictly infrastructure projects, more of the needed items that need to get done, and the kind of wants are all being put on hold.
Thank you, Enzo. And so did I hear correctly? Is it John Ireland who's on from the Board of Finance?
Yep, this is John.
John, anything you want to add to the mayor's comments?
No, I mean, we're going to go through our process, and obviously, as everyone has mentioned, there's a lot of different variables, a lot of different things to kind of analyze and take a look at. And this is for me, this is actually my first go around with it, so I'm trying to take it all in as well here. So I've got my work cut out for me, but I wanted to make sure that I joined in here tonight to hear you guys and take in as much information as I can. So
John, and we appreciate it. Thanks for joining.
No, and thank all you guys for all your work.
Mike, it's Enzo. May I add just one quick comment?
Yes, please.
All I want to say is, as all of you know, I'm a huge supporter of education. I believe that it's highly important to have a great education and the resources that come with it. I'm a graduate and someone that went through all the Cromwell school system. But I can tell you, I am receiving phone call after phone call, message after message. We have a lot of people that are hurting right now. And I just, I caution any type of budgetary increase, or deep, tapping deeply into our fund balance where, we may need that money just to keep the course if things really get out of control. And from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, we are only in the beginning stages of this virus. And, the economic impacts, we might not see any recovery till, late in the third quarter or fourth quarter. So I'm just, I'm concerned, and I just, want to err on the side of caution. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Enzo. John Flanders, back to you.
No, let other folks talk. I'm going to have more to say eventually.
Okay. So Lori Cantwell, and then I see our Board of Ed student rep Hunter is after Lori. So Lori?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, hi, this is Lori Cantwell. So I just want to echo what Selena Kelleher said. As a board, I feel as though we labored over this and scoured over this budget extensively and went through all these numbers. And a lot of these things on here, they're not luxury items, they're needed things. And to make cuts to anything on this list, I mean, when we all voted on the budget, we felt as though these things were all needed. So the only item that may be something to talk about, and it's certainly not ideal, but we did have the conversation before about possibly doing 2 social workers instead of 4. That's certainly not ideal, especially in this time. I feel like we need the 4, but if we're backed into a corner and we have to make a decision, that might be something we want to look at. That's other than that, I don't really see where else. I don't see what else we can cut on here. That's just my opinion.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Lori. Before we go to Hunter, so we are at 97. Enzo, do you object if I ask a couple of our administrators to drop?
No, I could explain everything. Obviously, they're the experts, and I know you guys would probably do a better job, but I think I could definitely take it from here. The only person I may ask to stay on the phone with me, just so she can give you a good indication later, is everything we're doing for the distance learning and transitioning from interim to distance learning would be Carrie McLean, and I'm thinking everyone else, we should be okay.
So let's do that. And let me just first apologize. I hate to do that, and it's not meant to be disrespectful to our administrators. I certainly value your opinion. Obviously, the board members need to be on because we have to vote, and I want to make sure that as many members of the public and our school employees who are on as well can listen in, and that they don't get maxed out. So please do not take it as any disrespect. What maybe you guys want to do, and I'd certainly welcome if you guys want to maybe conference in on one line together or text with Enzo, whatever you'd like to do offline to keep in communication, that'd certainly be awesome. But yeah, if they could drop now, we thank you guys, and we'll certainly be in touch as needed. Thank you, and my apologies. Okay. Lori, anything else from you at the moment?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. So Hunter and then Selena. Hunter.
This just in the same sort of vein as Lori and Selena. Since the budget, when we came up with this, really the need for social workers has only increased. And I think especially right now, we're seeing the need to have these social workers. And I think the district as a whole is sort of struggling that we don't have them. So I think to cut those would be very unwise.
Thank you very much, Hunter. I appreciate it. And for those who don't know, Hunter is, along with Clara on the phone, both of our high school representatives as members of our Board of Ed and very valued voices. So thank you, Hunter. Okay, so Selena, Jen, then Dipti.
Sorry about that, Mike. I had raised my hand because I wasn't sure if there was anyone else on the line other than the administrators that could drop off because I thought we might need them, but I'm a little late and I didn't unraise my hand in time, so my apologies.
No worries, no worries. Okay, Jen.
So it just in go ahead, sorry, off of what Lori was saying. I just in looking at this, the AP testing fees, I know we talked about it over and over and over, and I know it's only $20,000 in the grand scheme of things, but my understanding is that for any students who receive free or reduced lunch, the College Board will pay for half of that AP test and the district picks up that other half. That's my understanding. So I feel like we would still be funding or helping to fund the students that really need help paying for that AP test, and it sounds like we would find a way to help other students as well who really needed it, and counselors are very good at figuring that out. So if we're going to cut something, I would cut that.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Jen. Okay, Dipti Post, board member.
Okay. I'm going to echo Selena's.
Dipti,
Hi.
Dipti, you're just a little hard to hear. If you wouldn't mind either speaking up or getting a little closer to the phone.
Hear me now?
Yep, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to echo Selena's and Lori's sentiments. The kids right now, I think they're pretty traumatized by what is going on. They're also, I think they're going to be educationally behind when they go to school. I don't think all kids are participating in the distance curriculum. I know that all kids aren't participating. I really feel like right now, we really need the social workers. I think the kids are going to really need them. I think families are going to need them for a whole variety of reasons.
Thank you, Dipti. And I'll just quickly comment on the social workers that I certainly agree with I agree with the essential nature of a lot of this stuff, but I think those, as we think about the challenges our families are going to face over the coming year, I think it certainly becomes integral. Okay, so anything else from you, Dipti?
No, I just wanted to stress that point. And a lot of these families are also devastated economically, and they're also going to need the support with their kids with those social workers also. So it's all combined. It's all together. What's happening right now and the needs of families and the needs of children.
Thank you very much, Dipti. So looks like next in the queue we have John Flanders and then Lori Cantwell. So John, back to you.
Hi, this is John Flanders again. So I think my colleagues have expressed my feelings about this pretty well. It is clear that we are going to have an entire student body returning to school in September, having experienced significant trauma over the course of the spring and summer, and conceivably be experiencing substantial trauma in the fall, as according to the projections I've seen. I think to deprive ourselves of a resource to address that is irresponsible. I think that that it is incumbent upon us to be able to support our young people the way they ought to. I hear the mayor's comments about businesses and taxpayers, and I have spent most of my life working for or running a small business, and I do understand the cost, but this is a community, and a community deals with those needs which it considers greater, and I cannot believe that the needs of our children are not remarkably great. Along that line, I think our folks are doing a truly remarkable job on distance learning. But distance learning at its best is not the same as being in a classroom with a teacher, with the free interchange of information amongst your classmates, with that sort of education. So our kids are going to be starting next year's school significantly behind where they would have been had this not happened. Again, this is a need for which we are responsible, and to deprive those students of the resources that would help them make up that deficit is again irresponsible on our part. I looked at some of the economic decisions about this and the arguments. I have sat on the Board of Finance, and I have sat on the Board of Selectmen, and I have sat where the mayor sits, or significantly similar. And I appreciate those economic arguments. I appreciate our need to be able to borrow at reasonable rates to have a great bond rating. Given the choice, I would certainly trade 2 new police cars for 2 educators for the coming year. That just seems to me a no-brainer philosophy. The other thing is that while I appreciate the argument of taking money out of fund balance for current operating expenses is less than optimal, the fact is that we did that last year without an emergency, strictly for purposes of keeping the taxes low. Any bond rating agency is going to look at a worldwide pandemic as a significant challenge for any community. And if we need to take some of that money out in order to be able to meet the responsibilities that we have for our children, I think it is extraordinarily incumbent on us. One of the things we call fund balance, and one of the things the state calls its fund balance, is a rainy day fund. I don't think anybody looking around them right now doesn't think it's raining pretty darn hard. And it's incumbent upon us to meet our responsibilities for our children, to do the wise thing, and to use the resources that we have available, that we have built up for this purpose, to address those very definite needs. So I appreciate Lori's willingness to compromise, but I believe that taking out those social workers, even 2 social workers, is a really bad idea. And removing faculty is not an appropriate idea at this time. So I will say that if there is any motion to reduce our proposed budget, that I will vote against it and oppose it in the strongest possible way.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the feedback. So we now have Lori, and on deck, so we have Lori Cantwell up next, and on deck after her, Catherine Russ. So Lori?
Yep, this is Lori. Yeah, just to be clear, I do not want to remove 2 social workers. I voted for this budget. I think we need the 4. I was just simply saying if we had no choice, that would be the line item to look at. I also agree with what Jen said, that the AP testing fees, again, I know we talked about this for a really, really long time and went back and forth and back and forth. It's such a small number compared to everything else, but if we, that's something I think we could consider. Aside from that, to the mayor's point, I mean, none of us want the taxes to go up, but Fran said, we have the highest enrollment now. People move to Cromwell because they know it's a good school system, and for us to not be providing what these kids need, it's wrong. So we already voted on a budget. We already combed through the budget. We all were in favor of this budget, and now we're trying to pick at it again. And there's really nothing to take out of it. So that's how I just think we should just leave it alone.
Yeah, and certainly appreciate that, and thank you, Laura. I do want to just remind folks that certainly if we decide not to make any changes, the Board of Finance ultimately can, and certainly all indications are that they will. So then we'll need to figure out how to prioritize if that does come to be. But I certainly appreciate that. And the other thing I'd point out, I do think everybody, our Board of Finance members, our Town Council members, our Board of Ed members, and this is not a response to you, Laura, so don't take this as, I'm thinking about it, and I just want to share this this perspective. You know, all the members of our boards and commissions, our broader community, all of our dedicated faculty and staff, I think we're all focused on the same thing, and that is making sure that we provide the best education we can to our kids. And I think everyone is trying to figure out how we can do the best thing in a world that's a little different than, it's a lot different than when we had planned. And so we're just trying to examine if there are things we can do at this point, or things that we think we should be advocating for. So I want to make sure that everyone appreciates, because I sincerely believe it, that everyone is looking at the best interests of our kids, but there are a number of different factors that everyone needs to be balancing and considering. So yeah, I think everyone's coming from a good place, and it's our job to help advocate for what we think is best for our students and for our school budget at the end of the day. Okay, so we have Catherine, Selena, and then Jeff. So Catherine, Russ, floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Mike. I just wanted to say that I have been watching economically what they're proposing and what's happening, not just within our town, but across all the markets and everything else. I have clients that I work with that are small businesses, that I understand the impacts and what may happen if people don't pay their taxes and everything else. And I see Mayor Faenza's concerns with potentially not getting the money in that we foresee coming in as a town. And he also talked about the infrastructure and just asking for basic infrastructure needs for the town of Cromwell, and that's what they plan on doing. A lot of the items that are listed on our revised budget proposal for tonight remove, in my opinion, the infrastructure of what is required for our school system. Removing some of these teachers, especially, is going to really buckle and crumble what we currently have in place. And what we're asking for is, because of the increased numbers that we have coming through, especially the middle school and the high school level, and the new requirements that are required for the high school. So I did not agree with all of the line items that we approved on our budget, but there are a lot that are listed on this revised budget proposal to remove that I think are very critical and absolutely needed in order for us to continue to run an effective school district. And that's even removing the piece of distance learning and the impacts that our current situation is having on all of our students. And the social workers absolutely are going to be critical to help out our students when they return. But even that piece aside, our infrastructure is going to fall apart if we don't keep in the teachers that are there. And honestly, the majority of people I talk to that find out there are no social workers in our school system are just shocked and wonder, how do we survive? And we struggle. We struggle greatly with it. So there's not all pieces of what we plan to propose to remove from this budget do I think are effective for us to be able to run our current school system.
Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate it. Okay, Selena, and then Jeff.
I just wanted to add in that I just think at this late time, you know, a day before it's presented to the Board of Finance, I'd rather just follow the process. We also have to think about retention. That was one of our goals, is to retain teachers. And we all know we had that letter from the 6th grade team. The entire team wrote us a letter saying, you know, how this would affect their school and their grade. And as far as the social studies teachers, I mean, he even, in the letter, it already stated that we weren't in compliance with the new guidelines. So I just think that I'd rather just follow through on the process. And I don't see anything right now saying that there will be education cuts federally. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see that yet. So at this point, I just don't understand why we wouldn't just continue with the plan and the budget that we, you know, all agreed on.
Thank you, Selena. And I will point out, just by my back of the napkin notes here, that we have at least 4 members of the board so far who have spoken and shared unequivocally that they would not support any motion to cut the budget tonight. And with only 8 board members present, that makes it fairly certain that no motion, if a motion were made, it would not pass. So I'm just speaking very transparently and candidly here, what I would suggest is that we continue the discussion, particularly with our advocacy and our thoughts and anything we think, may be worthy of reconsideration to the extent we do, and continue to go around the horn with the Board of Ed members. But it's clear we do not have, without even hearing from all of the board members, it's clear we do not have enough votes to consider changing the budget vote that was previously approved. So just in the interest of transparency, so we'll continue with the discussion, but I just wanted to lay that out there at this point. So Jeff, you are next.
Yes, Jeff Matrullo on the Board of Ed. When we went through this lengthy process of adopting the budget, we looked at both sides of the equation, that is the revenue and the expense side. And on the revenue side, we even had some discussions, and I believe we even posed the question to the Board of Finance and Mary Ann about what did we think the grand list would look like for the upcoming year. And I guess my point is the assumptions that we made when we adopted the budget have changed drastically. I think we assumed a certain level of, quote, revenue from the tax side, which we may very well not receive anymore. So I think it is incumbent upon us to look at ways to offset that loss in revenue. And I guess what I'm focusing on here is the expense side of the equation. And so I just have it's more a question to Dr. Macri. Have we looked at ways which we can save money by not incurring expenses that we would have incurred if the students were in school full time? Just as an example, my company, we're not incurring the same amount of business development expenses we would have been incurring if everybody was in the office. Is there something analogous to that here? And it may only be a small amount that doesn't offset what the decrease in tax revenue is, but I'm just want to make sure we're exhausting all avenues in that respect. Are there other contracts that we could open up and try to bring down expenses, or is all of that foreclosed at this point in time?
And again, hi, Jeff. Everything you just said, I tried, even just because we have a hard freeze right now. All of our employees are getting paid. The only people who are not getting paid are our daily substitutes. Everyone, and they're obviously collecting unemployment, so we're on the hook for that as well, as we should be. As far as the DACO contract, we've talked a little bit about that, but there actually is a team, a task force in Connecticut who's working with the bus companies and Governor Lamont. And right now we have been told as districts to halt any of our discussions because they are trying to reach some type of they're negotiating for districts as a whole. Some companies, it infringes on some of the things that we have in their contract, but we have looked at the contract, and I've also sent it to Shipman and Goodwin to look at it as well. They're the ones that said hold tight. Programmatically, to be honest with you, curricularly, we've had so little in our budget curricularly and programmatically that we are not, we already cut, I already froze all programs so that we can get through the year and pay our bills. So we're not saving any money in that end because we really, like what I had spoken to all of you before about, and we've had some executive, sessions, is our lawyer fees, our counsel fees are very high. I don't need to help you relive your past, but then also there are things that are happening currently that we are going through, and then on top of that now, with the coronavirus, as you all know, everything in education is policy and statute. So everything we do, which we'll talk a little bit about later, grading, assessing, everything is a statute. So every single thing needs to be discussed and our lawyers have to be involved. And I don't see that bill going down at all. I wish it would. That's going to stay a little bit steady. My foresight is that, and I don't know what to expect when under IDEA and supporting our students with special needs. Right now, we're not able to provide the type of services. No one is, not just Cromwell. Everyone is in this conundrum, providing services to our students with special needs that they deserve. And ethically and morally, we will have a responsibility to try and figure out how we're going to make up these services to our students who need it the most. So I have looked everywhere. There was a couple things that Ann Burke and I were talking about that we could potentially save a little bit of money on. But as far as right now what's happening, we all know that we would save the most on benefits and salaries. Everyone is still being paid. And I did, in fact, close the buildings down so that we don't have to pay time and a half to those who are coming in. But that's just trying to keep it, down from, it would have just increased our debt. Or we're not our debt, but we're what we're nervous about, being able to get through the year. Ann Burke is still on the phone, I believe. And Ann, you and I spoke about a couple things. Can you mention anything that you possibly think that we might see a savings in? I don't know.
This is Ann.
Ann,
I wish I
share
would.
your title for the folks on the phone as well, please.
Yes, Ann Burke, Director of Financial Services, Cromwell Board of Education.
Thank you.
I wish there were a list of things that I could give you, but at this time there just isn't.
So what about things, I know it's not a lot of money, but I'm guessing with things like stipends, we're going to be saving at least pro rata for those for spring sports and spring activities. No, I mean, again, not a lot of money, but
That has not been determined. And to be honest, until we know whether or not we're going to go back, it would be very hard to even estimate if there would be savings.
okay. Well, and I'm sure we are, but I hope we're at least kind of tracking those kind of concepts and working. I know our unions have been very strong partners with us in all of these efforts, and I'm sure they continue to work with us to find these opportunities that are beneficial to the bigger picture. But let's just track those. So when, if our distance learning continues past April, we've got a list of those things that could be helpful savings. Again, I realize it's not solving the problems here, but when you're in this kind of budget situation, every little bit counts, and certainly appreciate all the work you're doing.
We're absolutely doing that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
we
that.
do that every day.
Yep, no, very much appreciated. And certainly I'll take a moment and you and the entire team, it's been extraordinary trying to figure out how to deal with all of these challenges, and really appreciate everything you guys are doing to do that. So thank you, Ann. Okay. Oh, can you guys hear me still? Tommy, can you hear me?
I can now. You did cut out for a moment.
Jeff, anything more from you?
Not right now, thank you.
Okay. Looks like we're back to John Flanders.
So I'm not sure what's appropriate here.
Well, let me.
Go
ahead.
But let me, and you can certainly rule me out of order. But I move that the board pass on the budget as it currently stands.
So, John, I do not think we need a motion since the board, it is as it stands, and the only motion would be if we're revisiting it. So what I'd ask is is there any other board member who would like to comment on the budget in any way?
Mike, this is Jeff. Do you mean substantive suggestions or just?
Anything on the budget agenda item before we move to the next item, because we do not have enough to consider a motion, so I'm not going to entertain a motion to amend the budget. So the board's budget proposal will remain at 6.14%, and that's will be presented to the Board of Finance tomorrow. So the only open question is there anything else anyone wants to say on the board for during this meeting on that budget topic before we move to the next agenda item? Okay, so again, I certainly appreciate the very helpful debates and discussion. I really value, this is Mike Camilleri again, I've not followed my own rule a single time. I appreciate everyone's honesty and openness in sharing their perspectives on these important issues. I appreciate everyone's willingness to stand up for what they believe is the right answer here and how we can most effectively move our budget forward. And as we always say when we have budget votes or budget not votes, as the case may be, that once we as a board have decided what to do, that we are unified as a board in supporting and advocating for that budget. And so I'd ask each of us, no matter how strongly we felt or where we came out during the discussion, to do your best to advocate for the budget of 6.14 that was adopted. And certainly you're encouraged to, again, it'll be a Zoom meeting. And John Ireland, are you still on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
John, do you know if there will be, I haven't looked at the agenda, will there be public comments at either tomorrow and or April 6th? And if you don't know, no pressure.
I'd have to, I'm going through all my books and stuff here. I'm trying to see. I know there was a copy of the agenda that's out there. I'm sure it's out on the town website.
So would you mind, if you have access to that, would you mind taking a look at that? And then if you're still on the call, letting us know. And also whether or not, if folks are unable to join that hearing and or if there's no public comments, what's the best way to share correspondence with the Board of Finance? So if you wouldn't mind, you could stay on the phone, but kind of taking a look at those two questions. And if you need to reach out to another member, to Chairman Neto or someone else, please do if you would, so I can just share that with folks.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure, like I mentioned before, this is just my first going on with the process. I just don't want to talk out of turn. That's all. Yeah,
no pressure. I'd rather have the right answer. And sorry to put you on the spot, but we're happy to have you here. So, and John, I really do appreciate that they took the time to join us and hear the debate in its full form. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So when you're ready, just feel free to either just speak up or raise your hand on the feature if you can figure out that, unlike me. Okay. We'll try to get that information out to folks. Enza and Alessandra, what I'd ask is if we can expedite completion of the minutes so we can circulate those if at all possible tomorrow. I don't know if that's feasible, but if so, let's try to do that before the meeting. And then in that same note, we can provide information about the Board of Finance meetings and how folks can join those. As a reminder to everyone, the Board of Ed cannot advocate through its email systems or other things to support the budget, but we can certainly provide information, including our minutes and meeting agenda and dial-in information for the Board of Finance. So thank you all for the good discussion. And importantly, thank you again to all of those who took the time to share their thoughts with us through correspondence. Sorry that this did not lend itself to public comments during the meeting, but your correspondence and all the emails we received were very helpful, and I assure you they were read by our board members and will be included in the minutes. So thank you for that. That ends the budget discussion for this evening. So we will go backwards in line to the action to determination of whether to maintain April vacation. And as I said, this could be a short agenda item, so I'll just have Enza share her thoughts on this. And then if anyone would like to make a motion to change anything, you certainly can do so. But Enza, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Just a little bit, I did, obviously, since it's my first time presenting to the Board of Finance, I memorized the rules. I did send, I did send everything out. I'll send it out again. There's a memo from Mr. Netto, and I do believe there is an opportunity for participants to be heard in public hearing. But I will send all of that out so you can see it. I could email it to you after this call.
Yeah, thank you. And if we can confirm that definitively during the call, it would be good to share. Yeah. So hold on, let me just while you're here, I think I may have found this here. So let me just read this. Thank you, Enza, for reminding of the notice we got. Yeah, so the public hearing will be tomorrow at 7 p.m. Let's see, you can join through the Zoom meeting. And I just don't see, it calls it a public hearing, but I don't see where it says anything about public comments. So we'll get that. You will also be allowed to call in and make comments using Zoom. So that does appear to be available, but hopefully John can also find out if folks can't join, what the best way to send emailed comments is, whether it's to Marianne or somebody else. So Enza, back to April vacation.
Okay, great. So we did discuss, we talked about, obviously, because we have, we are moving to distance learning and we don't know when we're going to be back in school. We were on a conference call with the superintendents with the Commissioner of Education today, and what he said is pretend, operate as if we will not be coming back. However, if we are lucky, we may see something change and we may be able to come back. So obviously, this is two-part. It's contractual. Our teachers work 187 days, and we have not interrupted any teacher time whatsoever. We were ready to go with interim learning, which was completely acceptable by the state. March 16th, our students had access to learning, and the teachers were available. So we have not skipped one day, which means if we continue right to our ending date, which is June 15th, we will have met that 187 work days for our teachers. But we would have to have April vacation. So my conversation with a lot of superintendents, most of them are absolutely having it. They think, I know it sounds, there are a lot of people that, who have never taught before, and everyone has their opinion and everyone has a right to it, but I think there are a lot of parents out there that are understanding what a teacher does all day long now, a little bit more so, and our teachers could really use that week to plan more effectively with the tools that they were just provided, because we had to provide them with training for virtual learning. And Dr. McLean, Paul Norrie, Doug McGuff, they have done an exceptional job with providing this training, but it would be great if our teachers had an extra that week to practice and put their lessons together. With that being said, I am a hopeful person. If we can come back in June for 2 weeks so that we could celebrate our seniors, that would be awesome. And if we were to remove April break and work through it, then we would have to take those 5 days off the end of the calendar. And I really want as many days on that calendar at the end, because I don't want to give up on graduation. I don't want to give up on any of that. The real reason why we all do this job is to celebrate the accomplishments of our students. So if we could just stick with the schedule and allow for April break to continue, we will finish as our scheduled date, which is June 15th, and we'll be in compliance with contracts. And we'll also give that one little extra hope that we might get back to work, maybe to school in June, so that we could do all the things that we really want to do for our students. That's my personal opinion, but I also think it's the best decision.
Okay, so thank you very much, Enza, much appreciated. So we'll open it up to questions for a moment, but just so everyone appreciates kind of the procedural approach here. The only motion that we'd need to entertain is if someone wants to make a motion to get rid of the April vacation. If we keep the schedule as is, there's no need for a motion and we can move on at the end of the discussion. So open it up to any questions for Enza on April vacation. Lori, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can now, yes, go ahead. Lori
My screen
Cantwell.
looks, yeah, my screen looks weird. So before the meeting, had it in my head that I would not be in favor of keeping April vacation. I understand what Enza's saying. It's just, I just feel like it's another week of falling more behind. From a personal standpoint, distance learning is not adequate for our personal situation. I know it's not for many families. So I have mixed feelings about this because I just feel like that's another week now that we won't be getting anything. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, appreciate it, Lori. Thank you. Okay. Oh, John. John is back. So, John, do you have any info you'd like to share?
Yes. So real quick. So for tomorrow, the public hearing portion of the meeting should be at the start, at the beginning, and our meeting starts at 7 o'clock tomorrow, just like tonight's meeting did, and and then we'll kind of be diving into our workshops and things from there.
And thank you, John. And on the agenda, I'm getting some feedback here. On the agenda, it says to share any budget-related questions with Mary Ann. Tommy, do we have any idea why that's happening? The feedback?
I do not.
Maybe if we make sure that everyone is muted if they're not talking, that might help.
Okay, let me try again. Is the feedback gone? Tommy, is the feedback gone? I don't hear it.
No, it's clear now.
Okay, thank you. John, so the agenda notes that budget-related questions, now it's back, should be, John, maybe you could go on mute because it may be you. Oh, yeah. Okay, so John, I'll let you talk in a moment, but if the agenda seems to note to share comments with Mary Ann Sylvester. If you could let us know if you hear anything different, otherwise that's what we'll share with the public. So John, anything else you need to add? We'll let you come back on off mute.
Yeah, no, sorry about the feedback. This is John. But no, if that is what they put on here, Mary Ann obviously is very helpful. And any questions you got, go from there. And then at the same time too, our meeting is tomorrow at 7, and if you can make it and join in, we'll be doing it through Zoom, just like this meeting tonight.
Excellent. And John, you may want to mention to Julius, I dropped him a note too, but that we did get very close to the 100 limit on our Zoom in case he has similar concerns.
I will be communicating that to him to try and see what we can do to make sure that we can, take care of all the capacity.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it, John.
Yeah.
Okay, Selena, I think you had your hand up. I don't know if that was intentional.
Oh, yes. I was just going to say that I had similar thoughts as Lori about spring break originally, but I understand now the reasons for why we should have it. But I just wanted to mention, obviously, we have so many resources the teachers have given us that if parents really want their children to continue to learn, we have so much we could just, continue to do with them. But it will also give parents a break that have been struggling with it a little bit. And so overall, I'm still, in favor of what Enza has suggested. But just want to mention that, that's something we could think about too, is we have so much that we could still, I might have some work left over from last week to work on.
Yeah, no, much appreciated and agreed. I mean, it's astonishing. I talk to a lot of my colleagues at work and the challenges they have of balancing work and distance learning and families and looking out for relatives they can't visit. It's just incredible, and kudos to everyone who has to balance more than just one thing. So any other question? Oh, John, sorry, I see your hand. John Flanders?
Yeah, this is John Flanders again. Just real quick, what I don't have the calendar in front of me. What did April vacation actually look like?
Let's see, it starts on Good Friday, which is April 10th. And then it would go the following week. I believe we'd be back to school on the 20th, but let me just double check. I'm doing this from memory here. Yes. So it goes until the 19th. So vacation would be the 10th. There's a weekend. Then we have the 13th through the 15th was vacation. And then we return back to school 15, 16, 17, 18, or 19. Am I wrong? Let me look at the calendar again. I'm sorry. Let's see. Yes, we'd be back to school on April 20. And just a little bit about what Selena did say as well. We are trying to strike that, and we'll talk about this a little later too, as far as striking that balance of, we have been provided with so many helpful resources from the State Department of Education and RESCs, which are Regional Education Resource Centers. And so many people have offered, obviously they're offering to help us and give us things for free that usually costs money, but you know what that means. They might want a contract later, which we've taken advantage of the freeness. But there are many things that students can be doing, but I agree if we were in a different situation, I would say, let's just go straight through and keep going. But because we have to determine, we would have to take off the end. And I was weighing the options of taking off at the end and with the possibility of maybe coming back for 2 weeks and letting our kids actually have a normalcy. Otherwise, we would have to pay everyone for that 5 days, and that would be a lot of money that we don't have.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So I see hands, Jeff and then John. Jeff Matrullo.
Yes, Jeff Matrullo. So Dr. Macri, I'm sorry, could you just confirm again what the last day of school would be if April break stays as it is?
Sure. It's June 15th.
Thank you.
Sure.
That means you're ruling out any snowstorms? Only kidding.
Doesn't matter anymore.
John Flanders.
So have we, am I on? This is John Flanders again. Have we given any thought, as Laurie mentioned, kids on IEPs are not getting necessarily the same degree of service that they were getting prior to this situation. Have we given any thought to looking at those kids and seeing if we can utilize that period for some or all of them to give them additional services that would help them from getting even further behind from the, I've read the State Department's directions, and I use that word somewhat loosely, on special ed, and they talk about, you know, reasonable and all that stuff. But if we have this opportunity to provide them with extra support to help them keep up or fall less behind, have we given any thought to doing that?
And John, so very good question. If I just pause, because I think that is going to shift very nicely into the updates. Anything more on April vacation, or does anyone else want to make a motion to change April vacation?
That, Mike, that was a question regarding April vacation. Could we?
Oh, I thought it was more broad too. I apologize.
No. I'm not going to get into that particular can of worms.
Then I apologize.
In this venue. I spend enough of my time doing it otherwise. No, this is strictly, we have an opportunity to less dehance the support that some of our students get by utilizing this time. And I wondered if we had given some thought to ways that we might do that.
Yeah, thank you, John, and my apologies for misinterpreting. And Enzo, Sari, whoever wants to take that one.
Sure, I could start and then Sari could chime in. The first thing, and I know no one likes to hear this, but it's the reality of the reality we would have contractual issues because our wonderful special education teachers and regular education teachers and related support staff would be providing these services, and they are under the same contract. So they are only required to work the 187 days. So we would have contractual obligations. Siri and I talked about a few other options of things that we might have been able to do, but they would all cost money. And as John, as you said so eloquently, and I feel the same way, and I don't think either Siri or I or anyone disagrees with you, we're doing the absolute best that we can for our students with special needs, but there is absolutely, I will tell you on record, I refused to sign the waiver for distance learning before it became non-existent. For this reason, morally and ethically, I knew that I could not provide the services that our students need to the extent of which they need them without our people working with our students. So to do more distance learning, I don't know necessarily if that's helpful, but a lot of students with special needs have expressed to me, it's like one end of the spectrum to the other, but that's with regular ed too. Can you please give us a break? Is my kid going to stay back? I just can't keep up with this. There's too much going on. Students with, behaviors, their parents are really struggling with helping them do the work. But then ultimately, I do have to abide by the contracts, so the contractual issues would come into play again. But I hear you, and I agree with everything you said to preface this conversation, and Siri does as well, and it's not falling on deaf ears, that's for sure.
Can I speak for a minute, Enza?
Hi, Siri. Sure. I wasn't sure if you jumped on.
Hi,
Introduce yourself
everyone.
with name and title, please.
Hi, everyone. It's Sari O'Leary, Director of Student Services. I just wanted to touch on that, and I feel for every family in the district, it's definitely a difficult time. And, we rack our brains every day. The teachers, regular ed and special ed, obviously, are all working diligently to plan opportunities for all of our students. And, the ones with special needs are definitely struggling. So I feel for everybody. And, John, I know you mentioned the guidance from the state. There's guidance coming out every day. As you know, we're waiting on more guidance from Brian from the Bureau of Special Ed. So hopefully, as the days go on, they will provide us with updates and support on how we can best meet the needs of our students. There's many options that could be on the table. Obviously, contractual issues are one of them. And I know the number one is how we can best support our students. Talk about possibly doing extra instruction this summer. That's always on the table. And I don't have an answer, and I wish I did. And I feel for every single family that has a child with a student with special needs. It's a really difficult time, and the teachers were day in and day out are working so hard to figure out how we can best support. So just so everybody knows, we are doing the best we can with the resources we have, and I will take any guidance that comes along and try my best to support the needs of all of our students. So we're all in this together. So thank you.
Thank you, Sari. John, any follow-up questions on any of that, Mr. Flanders?
Sorry, it's harder to find the unmute button than to shake my head. No, I'm good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sari. Thank you, Enza. Okay, anything else on April vacation? Okay, so I will assume we do not have, I won't assume, we don't have a motion to change April vacation, so April vacation remains as is. So in the tipsy-topsy world of tonight's agenda, we will go back up to superintendent's updates and let you take it away. As a reminder to everyone, so there are no action items under superintendent's updates. These are just updates and certainly opportunity for questions and feedback from the board members. Also, although I think this would be clear just based on the items listed here, we do need to stay on these topics and not go off of these topics, although they are fairly encompassing to anything that deals with our COVID-19 response as a district. So, Dr. Macri, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We have been doing absolutely everything we can, and by what I say we, it's our administration, our support staff, our teachers, our IT department, unbelievable. Everyone has just completely jumped on board, and how can we help with distance learning? So to start, these are some of the areas where the commissioner is still yet to provide us some guidance, and obviously he has his hands full as well, because he has federal mandates that he has to comply with. Attendance, as of now, our students, we are expecting our students to participate in distance learning as if they were going to school. I've got many families, not many, I would say handful of families have asked me to make it mandatory. In making it mandatory, we really are not looking at an equitable situation for all of our students, and it's very difficult for many families. We have families who some of our oldest students are helping watch children while parents are going to work. It creates a lot of inequities. So most districts are not using the word mandated. I am saying strongly recommend, and the teachers are checking and they're calling and contacting families when students are not participating, because we are about to embark on a little bit more of an accountability system as far as attendance and grading and compliance. And the distance learning plan is complete. It has been sent to teachers. Dr. McLean worked tirelessly with Paul Norrie and Doug McGuff, creating this plan. We've probably had over 100 hours of conversations with the teachers union to make sure that we are putting something out that we put our names on and that we can actually do. So we're very proud of that work, and the plan will respectfully has gone out to the teachers this evening so they could review it again, and it will go out to parents tomorrow. And we're in a good place there. I will pass it over to Carrie a little bit, because I want Carrie to just tell you a little bit about what this plan has in store for Cromwell students. And it is not it's not optional. A lot of people have used that word because during the interim learning phase, it had to be optional. We were building the plane and flying it at the same time, just like every other district. We can't compare ourselves to other districts. We've been compared to districts in Fairfield County. I don't need to tell you why that isn't a good idea. But we haven't been compared to districts who are in a much worse situation than we are. We are in a very good situation. We are making decisions that are in the best interest of our students and staff, and keeping safety the priority, which is some parents are expressing their disappointment because we're not using the two ways, the Zoom, the virtual component. There have been a lot of hackers. We actually got something from Shipman and Goodwin as well. It's people who are breaking in, sexual offenders, uploading pornography during a classroom site. Teachers are just getting used to this, so sometimes what's happening is a teacher will hang up, but the students remain online. And it actually really is not fair. There are a lot of families who don't want, a lot of kids that don't want other people to see their home or what's going on in their home. So there are a lot of things that we are taking into consideration. It's not a one size fits all, but we think we have a pretty good plan for the next few weeks until we have another conversation with the commissioner, and it may change. Everyone we all have to get used to as a community that this will change. There's nothing we can do about that. That's the only thing I can promise. But Carrie, if you want to talk a little bit about the plan, the distance learning plan.
Sure. So we finalized it today, and
Carrie, can you just Carrie, can you just name and et cetera?
Oh, sorry.
No problem.
Carrie McLean, Director of Curriculum and Instruction. So we finalized the plan today. We sent it off to the teachers. We've gotten a lot of feedback on the plan. We did collaborate with, several other leaders in many other districts. And the plan that we came up with does have a higher level of accountability. There's a lot of questions around grading that still are not answered. At this point, we're not going to be grading as if we normally would. There's a lot of reasons for that, mostly because we cannot control the setting. Having students take tests at home or sharing answers or getting support that they wouldn't normally get in a classroom setting. We can't ensure that those grades are fair. And so, and many districts are in the same situation. And so we've gone with a scale that is more of a meets expectation, approaching expectation, or has not been submitted. We've created systems so that teachers can track, parents can see more easily what their students need to be working on and what they still have outstanding. Teachers will be planning daily, so students will be expected to check in daily in their Google Classrooms. In the background, a lot of this had to be established. We didn't have all of these structures in place in order to make this happen. So in order to get all of this up and running, we had to put some structures and some systems in place, namely setting up accounts for various online learning things. And so we have all that in place now, and I'm happy to say that we'll be launching our phase 2 of our virtual learning plan April 6th.
So with Carrie saying that, we also have a nice surprise that we're trying to plan, but we need to contact some officials. But as you know, some districts are doing a nice parade, and Mr. Ray Sinclair and Dr. McLean are so excited about our virtual learning kickoff that I did speak with, I did text Mike earlier to see what he thought, and he loves the idea, and I wanted to let you know tonight that hopefully, if all goes well with, of course, we have to speak with the mayor, we're going to talk to Chief LaMontagne, talk to the fire department, just to make sure everything is okay, but we'd like to do one of our parades where our teachers can participate and our administrators, and we could drive through Cromwell and wave to our students and let them see their teachers that they miss so greatly. It's been really nice to see other districts do it, and ECS has been planning it, and we were thinking, hey, why not have the district jump on board? So we are still working out a few of those things and contacting important officials before we move forward, but we will hopefully be able to have that parade and have a nice kickoff for the new distance learning opportunities.
I have to say, I love the way you just put very subtle political pressure on all of those leaders.
Just a little bit, but no, I understand. Just like I said, safety first. And speaking with Ray and Carrie, Ray through Carrie, we have to make sure that everyone, all of safety is first, and we have to make sure that we have a plan and that we talk to everybody before we even think about it. So, but we have thought about it, obviously. So
Enza, you tell me when it's a good time, natural time for any board questions. I do know we have Mr. Flanders with his hand raised. Do you mind taking a few questions?
No, not at all.
Okay, John.
Actually, I apologize. An idea popped. This is John Flanders. Unlike the chairman, I do remember the rules.
Touche.
Going back to the finance, are we paying for the school resource officers during this time when we're not using them?
So we actually are, we have a contract as well, and we are paying some of their pay, not all of it. I would have to refer to Ann Burke for exactly how much, but they have been amazing because that I'll get to that next as well with our food services, with our grab and go meals, with really helping support. And there's been a couple situations where I've really needed Officer Alisea And they've been right there for us with a couple situations. They're helping with that and managing the traffic and helping with the flow Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between 9 and 12, and then helping with the Chromebooks, passing out of the Chromebooks as well. So we have been using them, but I will let Ann speak a little bit more about the contract because our agreement, because I'm not 100% sure about it. Ann, do you remember?
Ann Burke, the floor is yours.
This is Ann Burke, Director of Financial Services. We do pay a portion of the salary for the school resource officers, and we will continue to do so. There's an executive order from the governor, and it outlines what we are required to pay for. And I do believe that the school resource officers are going to fall under that. The payment goes to the town. So they're us. So I can't see why we would not pay them.
Yep, no, I agree. And John, you weren't necessarily advocating for not doing that. You were just asking the question.
I just wanted to make sure that we weren't paying for them to be out driving the streets in patrol cars.
Well, listen, I think the reality is that, tell me if I'm wrong, Enza, I think they're probably spending less time on school-related activities than they normally would, but I think given everything, I certainly don't have a problem continuing, not looking to reevaluate that relationship or that payment. And I think, although it's probably not necessarily covered completely by the governor's order, given the unique setup with that situation, I would not want to. It doesn't strike me as a helpful battle to fight, and I'd prefer to keep paying them. But if folks disagree, we can certainly explore that. We don't have an action item on it, but if anyone else wants to voice their opinion on that.
I don't know if someone wants to. I mean, like I said, you're absolutely right, Mike. We are not using them the way that we would if school was in session. 9 to 12, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. They are ours, and there's been a couple other circumstances that I would like to keep confidential where I've needed support, and they have been right there. There is, like I said,
so let me just say, if anyone disagrees and feels strongly, please reach out to Enza and I separately, and we can, if we hear enough interest, we can revisit that. But again,
can I? This is John again. Can I say that's fine? I just wanted to make sure that we were effectively utilizing all the resources that we were paying for, and it sounds like we are.
No, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Enza. Other questions at the moment for Enza? Otherwise, we'll let her continue. I don't see any hands raised, so Enza, the floor is back to you.
Okay, so when this started happening, of course, I think of all of our students and all of our families, but I did go to Sandra Shaw, who's our foods coordinator, and she is exceptional. She has done an incredible job along with Ann Burke. We looked at how many students we have that would qualify to receive lunch. However, the law is that we serve lunch to everybody and that everyone partakes and is able to receive lunch. So with that being said, we do have a large amount of students who qualify, and we also have a lot of students who have come because they miss the continuity. They miss the connectedness. One of our CAF workers knows every kid. She's been at ECS forever. I got emails from parents that they were like crying because she knows their child's eating habits, and she still knows one of their child's eating habits, and he's at the high school now. So it was really nice to see. So I just want you to know that on Monday we served 880 meals. We do enough food for 2 days. So, and in total, since we've started with the grab and go meals on March 16th, we've served about 3,400 meals. So it is
No,
needed.
And
Yeah.
on behalf of the board and the community, just really thank you and everyone who's had a role in that, because it's so vitally important that we provide that kind of support to our families and our students, and it's really awesome when folks really need it for whatever reason. So thank you very much.
No problem at all. It's been a pleasure. Our staff has been unbelievable. Our CAF workers, Mrs. Shaw, Ms. Burke, they've really just gone above and beyond. Same thing with distribution of Chromebooks with Mr. Twinsick and Steve and Rob, our new addition who walked in and said, here you go. This is how it's going to be, distance learning overnight. Everyone has been wonderful, and every parent who picked up either meals or Chromebooks has been incredibly thankful for everything. So I think it's a great community builder, and I think it's just made everybody realize that we're all in the same boat, no matter what our demographics, no matter, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. The most important thing is our health and our families, and when something like this happens, taking care of each other is what we need to do. So that's been wonderful.
And we do have a question or comment from Dipti.
Sure.
Hi, it's Dipti.
Hi, Dipt.
Hi, regarding those meals, are they going to be served during April break?
So we are going to serve, we talked about this, we talked about serving during April break, but perhaps we won't be able to because of the reimbursement rate, which Ann Burke and I have to talk about tomorrow a little bit more. We definitely will not be serving on April 10th, which is a holiday, Good Friday. And we are going to change our hours from 10 to 12 instead of 9 to 12 because we were serving a lot of grab and go items, but because we have been given permission from the State Department, the nutrition program, and from Sal Neshi to actually cook warm meals with directions on them so that our food doesn't go bad that we have in the freezer. We are going to need a little bit more time to actually do the cooking. So that's why we're going to adjust our hours, and that information will come out. But as far as spring break, we have not made a full decision yet because we are looking to see if those meals are reimbursable and if we would have anybody willing to work, because then we run into the same thing. It's less people, but we run into the same problem with contractual obligations and work time.
So this is Mike Kimberly. I'm just going to put you on the spot a little bit here and just challenge that if we find out it's not reimbursable or we can't have staff work, let's not give up on the idea of doing it, and let's see if there might be some interest in either through donations, volunteers, or other things to still make that happen. I think it's such a vital service that I don't think we should necessarily dismiss it if those two factors don't come into play.
Right. No, we're talking about it and we're working on it. We don't want that to happen either. So, yes, I hear you.
Yeah, let us know how we can help. So, Dipti,
Okay.
I'm sorry I cut you off, Dipti.
No, I'm good. Thank you, and I would be willing to volunteer.
Excellent.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Got Plan B already in motion, Enza. Okay, back to you. Enza, back to you.
I have pretty much covered everything that I wanted to review with you. I don't think I've left anything out. If you have any questions for me, and you've all been wonderful with directing families to me and parents to me. And like I said, we're doing the absolute best that we can with the resources that we have. And I have to say, our best resources are our people, our teachers, our administrators, all of our support staff. We've gotten this thing off the ground with what we knew we needed in the future overnight. It's taking a little bit of time, but I think we're doing a very good job. I just ask that when some people are never going to be, satisfied with what we do, but we have to understand that for some families, it's too much, and for other families, it's not enough. And what we're going to do at the end of the next 2 weeks is survey our families so that we can hear from them. But so far, many people have reached out to me and have been incredibly grateful and thankful for everything that we're doing. And then there's a few people who are not, who think that perhaps we could do better. But at the end of the day, no matter how much distance learning we provide, there is no substitute for a teacher. And I think people are really understanding how important that is at this time. And also to keep in mind that our teachers are homeschooling their kids as well. So everybody's doing the best that they can, and I appreciate the support from everyone.
And no, much appreciated, and certainly it is no matter what, whether it's schools, workplaces, families, grocery stores, churches, everybody is figuring this out on the fly. And one of my mottos as I've been dealing with things at work has been just try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt and try to be patient, kind, and compassionate, because I sincerely believe that everyone is trying to do the best they can under these very challenging and unique circumstances, and certainly appreciate everything that our school employees, our school leaders, and all of our families and students are doing during this challenging time.
Yes.
And I apologize if you didn't, if you already mentioned it. Did you mention about the Chromebook donation request?
Oh, no, I actually didn't. So we did have a family who, is it all right to mention?
Yeah,
yep, okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. and Mrs. Zabrowski have donated 2 devices for students who may need them. And right now we are, so as in our budget, we're trying to make a one-to-one district. That doesn't mean that students don't have access to devices at school, except for grades 3 and 4 are using 8 to 9-year-old stream books. So we were trying not to utilize those because they do have issues, but we've set up a whole tech department so that parents can contact if they need support. And we don't have enough Chromebooks for everyone. And then we're going to have the same situations where some of our kids from grades 6 through 12, they drop them, they're using them more, we have to replace them. So Mr. and Mrs. Zabrowski have donated 2 devices, which we're so happy to have, because we absolutely have students who need devices. And we also, I did get another email earlier from another family who also, I remember the name, I did.
Mr. and Mrs. Forrest.
Oh, yes. Mr. and Mrs. Forrest have also purchased donated devices and are sending them in the mail. So what we've asked people to do, I did send out I sent out an email blast yesterday asking people if they would like to donate. This is the Chromebook, one of the generations of the Chromebook that we're using. And I only did that because a few people have asked, and because because we have a small IT department. So if we stick to the same device, it's much easier for our IT department to help parents over the phone if something goes wrong, because if you don't have that device in front of you, it can become complicated. But otherwise, we're very grateful. We couldn't be more grateful for families who right now feel that they're in a good situation and they're willing to help. We are most appreciative of anything. We are asking that they are mailed to central office, and then we just leave them in the box for a few days is been the recommendation. Then we take them out and sanitize them, and then we distribute. So anyone who would like to donate, I did send out an email blast yesterday. If you'd like it again, just contact Lisa Hicks, and she'd be more than happy to let you know the model that we are using. But I thank everyone, like I said, and I am sending out a letter tomorrow to the community. Everyone has been incredibly supportive of each other, and you really can't ask for anything more. than to just really help each other during difficult times. And like Mike said, I wanted to put a sign up where people were picking up meals that said, this is a no judgment zone. We don't know what people are going through. You could be driving a beautiful car today and you might be laid off tomorrow. So it's no judgment. If people need food, if their kids need the connection to the schools, everyone's invited. And I think,
or even just some fresh air.
Just some fresh air, because you can't go too many places.
Yeah.
And we have a very good system of how you pick up your lunch.
Excellent. So thank you, Enza. So any board members have any other comments, questions, thoughts they'd like to share? Selena.
Just along those lines of the Chromebooks, there have been some families that have inquired whether they could just buy one for their child to use at home so that they're not, taking one from a student in need, because they, have enough at home, but it'd be easier on a Chromebook type of thing. I assume there's not a problem with that. As far as setting it up, you would just use it like your own device at home. Is there a way that they could be ordered in bulk together? Or are they pretty easy to get at the moment? I know it's hard to order anything right now, it seems like. So I just wondered if you had any information on that.
I know we've had a couple of conversations about this, but I'm going to hand this one over to Mr. Latwinzik because he has a lot to say about it.
Mr. Latwinzik.
I have nothing to say about it, but currently, if we were going to do any kind of bulk ordering, my sources tell me that the earliest delivery is mid-May.
But if people were to purchase their own devices, it's fine. They could still sign into they'd be able to access everything.
Correct. Just like they do now on their personal device, as long as it has the Chrome browser, it doesn't have to even be a Chromebook, but it'd probably be a little easier for them on a Chromebook. It's just that if they bought it themselves, it would be theirs and it'd be a lot easier. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to service it, but we'd be able to help them if they had, connectivity issues or so, just basic issues.
And could you just would you mind just reminding me which grades it's an issue for? I think it was, certain grades were more, I think the lower grades were the ones where you didn't have quite enough. Can you just remind me which grades would be good for parents to consider maybe doing that if they can afford to?
It's currently 3rd and 4th grade.
Where there's the deficit?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank
and that's where we're handing out the stream books that are in what they're using in school, but that's what we were going to replace those. We have a whole plan. Tommy has a whole plan of how we were going to do that for next year so that our students can have, they need the Chromebooks. And the stream books I already had families pick them up and drop them off because they're not working. So we've had to replace them with more stream books, and hopefully those will work.
Excellent. Thank you, Selena. Anything else, Selena?
Can I just one last question, just to be super clear. So if a student does need their Chromebook and they're in a different grade and they want to pick it up, is that taking it away from someone that could need one in 3rd and 4th grade? Like, are the Chromebooks from, say, 5th grade going to be redistributed to 3rd and 4th graders that need them?
It's a great question. So this is how we have done it. We, Dr. McLean, Tommy, Mr. Latwinzik, they've worked together, Mr. Nori. We put out a survey. Principals have worked with families. Teachers have contacted families to see who absolutely needs a Chromebook. In the beginning, families thought, oh, maybe our kids could share. They realized very quickly that was really hard. So we put out a survey again, and we had, I don't know, Tommy, about how many Chromebooks, how many devices picked up yesterday. I would say at least 100 or more.
Oh, it was well over 100, and I think we still have another 130 or so to do tomorrow.
So we're doing, we have a procedure, and all families have been notified who filled out the survey and said they would they would like a device. And yes, we are using every device we possibly can. We're trying to keep, the kids are funny because as they pick up their devices, if they're in the car, they know the number of their device. And one child actually got the wrong one, and she had her grandmother bring her back because she wanted her computer. So we want to make sure our kids get their computers, but there's going to be a point where that we have to share those 5th grade and those 2nd grade Chromebooks with other students.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So thank you, Selena. And I'll take this opportunity also to thank Selena, especially for joining us on her birthday today. So happy birthday, Selena.
Oh, Selena, happy birthday.
Thank you, everyone. No place I'd rather be.
You're not going anywhere?
I had a lot of options, let me tell you.
Any other questions, comments from board members?
Oh, moved.
Any comments, questions from administrators? Okay, thank you all. And we have a motion to adjourn from John. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Lori. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 9:02. Thank you all very much. Have a good and safe week. Take care.
You too. Thanks.
Aye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.